Alrighty, well, hello everybody. Welcome in. It is good to see everyone here on yet another episode here of Three Up, Three Down. Today's topic is on batters interference, and we're actually going to split it into two different weeks here, this week and next week. Today, we'll really just focus on stuff involving the batter, like at the plate or around the plate, as we'll talk about. And then more so next week, we'll take a look at the batter as he or she becomes a runner. So, kind of two different segments here. So, just as we get ready to talk about it and think about interference, we'll talk about it and define it and what exactly it is, some of the parameters and criteria. But at the same time, once we start to get into clips, it's mainly focused on just the batter today, and then batter runner stuff, such as runner lane interference and that kind of stuff. We're going to save that for next week because it's just a whole nother can of worms, so to speak, to get into in another time with more time for us to go through. I got a couple announcements before we go ahead and get started, and DJ is going to link some things here in the chat for us, either DJ or Seth, if you guys would. First of all, those of you guys in the central region, or if anybody really wants to look at them, we issued what we call our focal points, which were formerly mechanics points of emphasis for the year. We'll talk about a lot of those in these meetings, and we're going to actually do a couple different videos together with the other members of the CRUAC as well, to kind of give you some clips, some examples, and some more guidance on those 5 major things to work on this season. Those 5, number 1 would be using this season to get back to the habits and get back to the basics that we've all worked so hard to value and get us to a certain point in our career. 2nd, proper use of eyes. 3rd, chest to ball. 4th is to continue on our wedge evolution with plays at the plate. And then lastly, just making sure that we are good to our partners, supportive partners, and showing empathy not only to our partners but to the leagues as we all try and come back and rebound from different places related to the coronavirus and the restrictions that are put in place in different counties, different communities, and things like that. So DJ's shared those focal points there. Definitely some things to take a look at and at least be mindful of as you work your games, and also as you're providing feedback to fellow umpires as well. So keep those in mind, and DJ's got those linked in the chat for you. The other thing that's also linked in the chat, and I think those of you guys that are getting ready to get into the clinic season will find this very useful. The Western region has got some fantastic people in it, one of which is Gary Groutman, who was on the call with us last week. And Gary and his team put together a couple 30-minute videos of the greatest hits of rules, and they're really easy to follow. They're really direct, very well done, very clear. And DJ's got that linked in the chat too. So if you're looking for a quick hitter, either to refresh your memory, to listen to as you're driving, listen to back and forth from games, or as you're getting ready for games, or like I said, to use in your clinics, 100%. Those are fantastic resources for us to use from the West. And then the other resource that DJ will also link in the chat is the tips for mastering the rule book. And again, not only should we use those individually to think about how exactly we're going to read the rules and prepare, but as we all start to lead our rules clinics, whether they be virtual or in person, depending on where we're at, just some things to keep in mind so that it's not the same old boring read from the rulebook type of deal. And that way we're starting to incorporate some strategies that build enduring understandings and lead to transfer and application. So those 3 things are all listed there, and those are basically my announcements to go ahead and at least touch base with and look at here to help you get ready for the season individually. And then, like I said, many of us are in positions of leadership. Share those resources with those in which you lead to help them out along the way too. Lastly, we're in the middle of the webinars with Little League Baseball and Tom Rawlings. He's got a bunch of those on there. Again, a lot of good folks from the West and from out the region and the country helping to put those together. I think they're running every Sunday at least, and then there's also sprinkled in. So don't forget to register for those and attend those when you can, or just catch them on the umpire registry as well. Okay. And any other announcements here that I'm missing from you guys that's worth pointing out here before we get going with interference? All righty. Well, like I said, today's topic is batters interference, and really what we're looking at is 606 here today, 606C specifically on the catcher's fielding or throwing. So this is the batter interfering with the catcher's fielding or throwing here. So what I want to do here, and I need to make sure that I go ahead and share my screen, so let me go ahead and do that here, is the first thing that I want to do, and we can use the chat to do this, and DJ and Seth, you guys can monitor the chat here, is the question that I want us to do and think about here before we even get started is what are the basic principles of interference. So think about you as you would teach your class, or if you were to give a coach just, hey, this is what interference is, trying to define it, try and throw out some criteria or things like that. So let's answer that question here in the chat. What are some basic principles of interference? What do we have to have for interference? So go ahead and answer or drop some of those in the chat. Again, what are the basic principles of interference? What are some things that we have to have in order then to get interference? Let's go ahead and populate the chat with those things here. And I'll get ready to share my screen here with everyone as well. All right, DJ, I'll give you whoops. I'll give you the deal here. I keep going too far here. Okay, so here on the screen, I've got then here, what are some of the basic principles of interference? So let's take a look at the chat. DJ, what are some of the things that folks are throwing out here in terms of like what we should be looking for or what we have to have for interference?
Steven says the hindrance of the defense.
Good, so that's a great word to use, is hinder. Okay, very good. What other things we got there in the chat here that would help us to understand what are some of the guiding principles or things to think about to make sure that we have interference?
Tony chimed in, said hinder the defense's ability to make a play. George says the offensive player getting in the way of a defensive player's attempt to field a live ball.
Good, good.
Anything else, guys? Those are only three that we've got. Any other like basic principles of interference that we can think of just off the top of our heads here?
Think about criteria. Think about what exactly you can remember from reading in the rule book that we have to have that basically gives us interference.
I'm going to throw one word out, Stu, and the word that pops into my mind is impediment. Member of the offense impeding the ability of the defense.
Good. So hinder and impede are great words to use too. What other words might we use to like describe, define, or quantify interference? Because this is where I'm going. This is the criteria, the philosophies here that we're looking for. Hinder, impede. Anything else here popping up?
Nothing's. Jose chimed in and said the same thing: hinder or impede the defense's ability to make a play.
Good. Okay. So those are all good things, and I'll get to a formative list of formal list of criteria here in just a second. But just a couple guiding principles here to think about with regards to interference. And if this went ahead and triggered a light bulb, I'm like, hey, yeah, I was thinking about that. We're in a good place. But first of all, here, you do not have to have contact to have interference. So contact is not necessary to have interference. But at the same time, just because there is contact does not always mean there is interference. So contact, while it definitely is an indicator that you may have something, it doesn't always either determine yes or no, you do have something. So that's the first guiding principle is with regards to contact. You don't need contact to have interference, but just because there is contact doesn't exactly mean there is always interference. In our approved ruling here, interference does not always have to be intentional for it to be called. I should probably have the word always in on this slide. So it does not always have to be intentional for it to be called, but there are some situations in which the rule book specifically says the interference does have to be intentional. And we'll talk about that over the course of the next few weeks. The last thing here, and I think this is big picture, big item here to think about, don't take the short end of the stick in an argument. When you see something happen, use common sense. Either we know, yeah, that was probably interference and something was wrong, and on those close ones, default to common sense. Okay, so as we take a look at some of the plays here today and think about some things, these guiding principles are ones that'll definitely come back to. The whole idea of contact. Secondly, it does not always have to be intentional. And at the end of the day, just use common sense and you'll go ahead and get the things right. The last thing that I'll also add into this here too is to make sure that we continuously use our eyes. That's one of our focal points for 2021. Proper use of eyes will help us make sure that we see enough of the play to basically get us to the right ruling based upon these guiding principles. Now, many of you guys dropped a lot of these different types of things in the rule book, and I asked for the criteria. So right here is some of the criteria that we've got. Interferes with, which some of you guys said. Obstructs. The word impede came about. Seth, you used that one. Hinder was used by a couple people in the chat as well. Or confuses any fielder attempting to make a play. So again, there's no contact that's involved in the criteria. Intent is not also listed in the criteria here. So make sure that we remember that with our guiding principles. And then you've got the penalty here. If we declare the batter, runner, or runner out for interference, all other runners shall return to the last base that was, in the judgment of the umpire, legally touched at the time of the interference unless otherwise provided by the rules. Important to note that for the most part, offensive interference often uses time of interference. That's what TOI means, time of interference for the placement of runners. Now, that word is often, it's not always, because there are some variances to that, and we'll talk about those here over the coming weeks. So those are our basic criteria, okay, to kind of think about basic philosophies, things to at least be mindful of here with regards to interference. Any questions on that stuff here so far? Any other comments in the chat, DJ, for us to look at here? All right, I'll take the silence as to keep going. Now, like I said here, today we want to look specifically at 606C, and this is the batter typically interfering with the catcher's fielding or throwing, fielder or throwing, by doing one of these three things. So here are our three major categories. Number one, stepping out of the box. Secondly, making any movement that hinders, there's that word again that people use, the catcher's actions at home plate or the catcher's attempt to play on the runner. Okay, so that includes a steal play or even a back pick. And then the third one is the congested area provision here. So those are the three categories that we're going to look at. Now, I definitely want to touch base with the exceptions because we should know the rulings here that we took a look at in terms of the penalty in the previous slide, right, with regards to who is out and when they are out. So as you see here, there are two major exceptions for us to note here with regards to interference. The batter is not out if any runner attempting to advance is retired. So we'll take a look at an example of that one. Or as you see here in 708G, this is the 2-out provision, which we'll talk a little bit about here later today as well. Right? Any questions so far on the rules before we get into clips? Anything at all there on the rules? Anything unclear or need to be reclarified here? All right, good. Now, let's take a look at these clips, okay? And we can just, as we take a look at them, really just want to answer a simple question, and that is whether or not the play that we're going to see, is it interference, yes or no? And then with that, it's also important to note here at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen or wherever it might be, the situation. So here we have R1 only, 3-1 count, which is also important here on the batter. Okay, so let's take a look at it here. We want to see if this is interference on the batter, yes or no, by the rules that we had. See if I can slow it down here for us so everybody sees it. All right, what do we think here? Interference, yes or no?
Yes.
Why do we have interference on this one? What criteria from the rule book do we have to enforce interference here?
That batter impedes the throw of the catcher.
Yep, you got it, and it's a specific category too, right, Chris? Anybody remember the category? What does the batter do wrong that makes him guilty of interference here?
Out of the batter's box.
You got it. He's out of the batter's box, okay? Now, the back end of this play is important, right? Because so many of us would probably think that this ball is dead right here. And for the most part, the ball will be dead on interference. However, remember the exception. If the first initial throw retires the runner, what do?
No interference.
Yeah, we just ignore the interference. Good, Matt, okay? So again here, this is definitely interference because the batter is out of the box. He leans over, interferes with the catcher's ability to make a throw. This runner is still retired as out. We're still going to point and say that's interference here, just so that everybody's clear and it doesn't look like we're retroactively saying it. But again, then we're just going to ignore it because this runner is retired. Now, if he was safe, we would call time. And then who would be out in that situation if this runner was safe? Who would be out for this instance?
Batter.
In this
instance, the batter. Yep, the batter would be out. And then what do we do with the runner?
If you don't get him out, you send the runner back.
What if it's strike three?
Yep, unless it's strike three. Yep, exactly. And we'll get to that situation here in a little bit. Good, guys. So we're good to go on that first clip. Clip number 2, is this interference, yes or no? So here we go. Here's the pitch. I'll slow it down so everybody can see it frame by frame. Yes or no here?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Why so again?
Same thing. You impeded the catcher's ability to make the play.
Because he was where?
Out of the box.
Out of the box.
Out of the box. You got it. Okay. So, and our eyes have got to be able to see that. And when we communicate this to coaches, like we've got to say that too, because while impede and hinder, you guys are correct in those. Those are also like judgments. At the same time, if the batter's out of the box, like he's got to be called for interference. So when you're thinking about it and explaining it and taking all this in, like we've got to make sure that we also know where exactly this batter is at so that we can communicate all facets of the play. Yes, he definitely impedes it, but he impedes the ability of this catcher to make a play because he is out of the batter's box. Now, this runner is called safe here. So, again, what are we doing here in terms of where are we getting the out? Who is out in this play?
Batter's out.
Batter's out. What do we do with the runner?
Returns to third.
Send him back.
Yep, send him back. Okay, very good. Now, if there were if there were 2 strikes, so let's say it's there's like no balls, 2 strikes on the hitter, and you have that same play, and it goes down to second base, and you've got interference there. What are you doing?
Calling the runner out.
Yep. Good.
And the batter out on strikes.
Yep, you're getting 2 outs there. Very good. Okay, and you can call those one with your right hand, one with your left hand, and then cheer for 2 outs. Right. Yep. Go ahead, Jose.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but it's not Jose.
Oh, go ahead.
Kyle, you've got your hand raised. You got something for us?
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear that we're still going to have interference, whether they're out of the box or not, if they are hindering or impeding.
Yep, you got it, and that's a judgment on you too. And I'm going to get a couple different clips here with regards to them being in the box here as well. So there are some protections that we're going to issue here, and I'm getting there here in just a second with the batter in the box. But as long as the batter does what he is supposed to do, then he's going to be okay. So like if his backswing, for example, makes contact, we're probably going to get that for interference. That would be an example of him being in the box. If he steps over, like a check swing where he drifts over, as we saw in the previous clip, all of that stuff is interference here too. Let's say that he tries to get out of the way but stays in the box, and that still hinders the catcher's ability. You can get interference on that one too. But largely here, and this takes us as a great segue, Kyle, into this clip, if he does what he's supposed to do, then we're not going to have interference. So let's take a look here at this clip. Okay, so there's the pitch. Catcher's catching it here. I know it's probably a little choppy, so let me go ahead and get it frame by frame. And he's going to make a play, and the ball's going to go right off the bat here. Okay? What are you guys thinking here on this play? Would you have interference, yes or no?
Yes. I got interference on him because he knows where the play's going, and he's just staying there, not trying to vacate the area.
Okay.
He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's standing there. He has the right to stand there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kyle,
I've got nothing on that.
Yep. Kyle, I want to come back to the word vacate because you use that one, and that's definitely from a criteria in one of the categories. Anybody remember where that word vacate is specific to in those categories?
Play at home plate.
Coach's box, isn't it?
Yeah, play at home plate. So he only has to vacate a congested area for a play at the plate. So in this case here, all right, the batter, and timing is everything here too. The batter here, I mean, it's a steal play, obviously. There's really no intent, and there's nothing for him to do. I think this is a bang-bang play. Yes, there's contact, but the batter does everything he is supposed to do here. Okay, there is nothing that he could have done differently to have gotten out of the way of this one. So for us, this would be a no on the interference.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Stu, I want to add something on this clip too. This is a perfect example of what Stu was talking about earlier when it comes to taking the short end of the stick. If you're going to try to argue that this is interference, you're really going to strain and struggle to make your point where common sense says he's not interfering with this throw. The catcher throws and hits the bat. It's much easier to get nothing on this than it is to try to sell the fact that you have interference.
Yep, that's a great point. Don't take the short end of the stick in the argument here with this one. All right, so good point there here. And again, if the coach comes out and argues, you're just basically going to say, hey, he did everything that he was supposed to do. All right. We good so far? Anything else here to stop and touch base with before we get into the next clip? Good comments, good questions here. All right, interference on the batter, yes or no? Ball in the dirt, goes to the backstop, runner at third, trying to come in to score. And before we get into deciding whether or not this is interference, I want to take a quick pause here and talk about one of our focal points this year, and that's proper use of eyes. Everybody take a look at your plate umpire. Where are his eyes right now?
the runner.
Yeah, on the runner. Where technically should they have been throughout this play?
At the ball.
Yeah, at the ball, and we got to get our head and eyes ahead of the runner at the same time. But as we see here, I think that he fixates or he takes his eyes off the baseball just too quickly, right? And then starts to fixate on the play. And you do have to get your eyes ahead. So I don't want to necessarily take that one away. You do have to move your eyes ahead. But at the same time, we can see here that he just happens to catch this out of his peripheral vision. Would we agree with that? So this is a great point of emphasis for us to pause and think about proper use of eyes. Now, let's go back to our topic here. Is this interference on the batter, yes or no?
Yes.
Yep, you got it. Yep. Okay. So let's say that there's only one out in this instance. Okay, let's say that there is one out. What do we have?
The runner's out.
Yep.
Yep, runner out.
Yep, on a scoring play. Yep, remember the runner's out and then the batter's going to stay in the box unless what?
2 out.
Yep, unless you've got 2 outs. So this is where the 2 out provision comes into play. Now, I want to take a look here at this umpire's mechanics because they're not horrible. Just a couple things to clarify. All right, he's got interference. He points right there on the batter, and then we get an out. Okay, so we want to make sure that it is clear here as to who exactly we are going to get an out for. I think this umpire does a good job. He's pointing to the batter. That's where I have the interference. Probably should kill it, but now we're getting an out there for that interference right here. And now with 2 outs, I'd point out the runner, and then I'd go ahead and signal that out. And I'd make sure that you communicate to the scorekeeper that batter is going to come out, or that place in the order comes back and lead off the inning.
Stu, I think you just said it backwards.
Yeah, he wouldn't come back in if there's only 1 out.
If there were 2 outs.
If there's 2 outs, the batter's out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, shoot, I did say it backwards. Yep, you're right. So, yeah, so if there's 2 outs, yep, please ignore that one. Yep, if there's 2 outs, if the batter's out, and I'm communicating that one here too. Okay, so we just got to make sure we're communicating effectively as to who's out. Now, there were 2 outs in the inning. So down here in the bottom right-hand corner, there were 2 outs in the inning. So when this umpire points at the batter for calling him out, he's correct. And we just got to make sure that we are very clear as to who is out in this situation. Now, multiple runners are also on base. What do we do with them? They go back to where?
They go back to where they started from.
Yeah, time of interference base.
Yes, time of interference. It's not time of pitch here for us. It's time of interference. Very good. All right. We're good to go so far in the batter? Good work there. All right. The infamous tangle untangle is also something that I'll go ahead and include stuff for the batter. So here we basically have then this whole idea back in 606C, and that is interfering with the catcher's fielding or throwing here. So let's take a look at some clips here from tangle untangle. Here we've got a bunt attempt. Is this one then interference, yes or no? So here we got a bunt attempt. And then boom, there's contact right there. All right. Here it is again. All right, what do we got?
I would say it's interference on the batter. As the ball was contacted by the bat, you would expect him to immediately start going the first. And since he did not and was looking up at the ball, he did not vacate at the appropriate time.
Anybody agree or disagree with Tony there?
I agree.
Agree.
Great points, Tony. The batter has got to do what he's supposed to do, right? And in this case, he looks up and does not move here. So absolutely, he is guilty for interference. He should be called out. All right. Now, if he were to run and take off and then there was contact and they both started at the same time, you would just have a that's nothing safe call there. But in this case, we definitely have interference. Now, again, highlight proper use of eyes. And then secondly, I want to make sure that we highlight the mechanic here done by the umpire. So comes out, take a look at this umpire's eyes. Exactly right on him. Our eyes, we got to use them so intentionally that we should be able to narrate exactly what happened. Not only to ourselves, we call it right, but so that when we have to explain it, we are able to explain it thoroughly and clearly as well. So great use of eyes here by this home plate umpire. Gets the mask off quick. Eyes are right on the play, and then boom, big time call, right? This is interference. We've got it dead. He goes ahead and lifts his arms, calls time, signals who is out for the interference. Right there is that point on the batter. He's out. And then the other thing to also make sure that we note is that you see this umpire start to continue to come out into the middle of the field. Watch this clip. So we've got it. Great job here. And then he starts to come out into the middle of the field. This is where the spotlight is. So anytime that you have interference like this, whether it be runner's lane interference, which we'll talk about next week, or in this case, tangle untangle, you want to make sure you get as much as possible killed as early as possible here. And the best way to do that is to step into the spotlight. Where's the spotlight? Well, it's in the middle of the diamond. And this umpire does a great job. Proper use of eyes, great mechanics to kill it. And then as he's coming through to communicate and signal, he moves into the middle of the diamond so that way everybody can see him. Great mechanics here then done by the umpire. Signals him out, and then you'll see what he does with the auxiliary runners. He's going to point to him and then send him back. Right there's the point, and he's going to send him back. Another clip here. Do we have interference, yes or no? Anybody here? Interference, yes or no?
Yeah, same problem. He wasn't running.
Yep. And he's what?
Box.
Out of the box. Yep, exactly right. Umpire does another great job here. Points, that's interference, that's interference. We should kill it. And then again, notice where this umpire's at, right? He's in the spotlight in the middle of the diamond. There's no confusion, no auxiliary actions here because the umpire has done a great job, number one, of using his eyes first, and then secondly, calling the interference and then coming out into the spotlight to make sure that everybody sees the mechanic. Good work here. All right, let's take a look at this one. Get a bunt attempt. Here's another look at it. Nice slow motion here. What are we thinking here?
Still interference.
What'd you say, George?
I think it still looks like interference to me.
Okay, why do you have interference on this one, George?
Because he's put the ball in play. The catcher's making an attempt to go get it. It looks like he should have already been gone.
Okay.
Out of the way.
I think it's not interference, only because the catcher seems to be coming up way earlier than what he normally would. Like he's ready for that bunt because he sees him square up. So he's already ahead of the batter before contact.
This one's tough for me to read in slow-mo. I almost wish I could see it in real time.
I agree.
I agree. In real life, in real speed, this one's going to be, I'm
Yep.
probably going to let this go.
Yep, let me see if I can. I'm going to let it roll here. It may be a little choppy, but I'll let it roll and see what we get.
He paused just for a brief second to see where it went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't see
that I
anything
think I got
uncommon
nothing.
there.
Then
I'd say
Doesn't
nothing.
matter.
Yeah, I like this discussion. And I will say here, and we'll see the mechanic here by the umpire, and it'll give it away. All right, eventually. That I think the biggest thing to realize here is that both of these, the batter and the catcher, they break on this one simultaneously, right? They're both moving at the same time. And I think both of them are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So for most of you guys, as you said, and as Seth Point said, don't take the short end of the stick here. This is probably just to let it go, and it's a that's nothing. All right, here's another look at it. I'll let it roll. Probably not getting interference on this play. Now, here is the look at it, and I think in real time, and then take a look at the mechanic here by the umpire. He comes out right away and gives us a that's nothing. That's great. That's great officiating, great use of eyes here yet again right out of the box. That's nothing. Signals to everybody that, hey, I saw it and I didn't have anything, and that play can continue. And then eventually both he and the catcher have a little discussion, and he is able then to go ahead and talk a little bit about, his way through it as to why exactly he did not have anything. Any questions there? Couple quick bonus clips here. I've got two of them here for us. All right, interference on the batter, yes or no? So here is a ball. I think we saw this one back in the. Just want to make sure it all get looped up here on the interference on the batter. So he swings at it and then does one of those numbers. Here's another look at it. Swings at it, makes contact, And then, there we go. What do we have here?
You know, from the clip that we can see, Stu, it's tough to tell if the ball hit the bat or if the bat hit the ball.
All right, let me see if I can slow it down here right at that point.
Looked like the ball was stationary.
Hey, you got bat hit ball.
Let me see if I can get it down right at the right time.
I don't see it as intentional, though.
Doesn't have to be
It
intentional.
doesn't have to be intentional.
Good, good. So this here, the bat hits the ball. And then again,
Yeah, from that
Okay.
angle, you can see it's an interference.
Yep. And then this one definitely takes the ball out of the
Yeah.
immediate reach of the catcher. We've got interference here. Very
I
good.
was having a
I
hard
think-
time seeing if it was the ball hitting the bat or the foot kicking the ball. Either way, it's interference.
I think the other key point here, guys, is if you can roll it back, Stu, watch
Yep.
the batter's head as he exits the box. To me, it looks like he looks right down at that ball, and conveniently the bat goes where the ball's at. So that's a way that you can potentially judge intent. It's hard to tell from the top angle. If you go to the side angle where it's left-handed batter's box, you can kind of see him look exactly where the ball's at and then place the ball down.
I don't know if you
Or the
would
bat.
actually see that as a plate umpire, though, because of watching the ball itself at that particular time. I think it'd be hard to see
I'm not saying that you need
player look down.
I'm not to directly another potential selling point if you see it.
Yeah.
You can garnish intent on that. And then then you definitely have ground.
Yep. Yep. Again, proper use.
I would say it's a little hard to go with the and then conveniently the bat goes there, because honestly, how many times have you seen a hitter not look at where the ball is going, at least to start with? They could hit it to third base and their eyes automatically go to where that ball is going, and then they start running.
Yep. Yep. Again, key mechanic here, proper use of eyes. Obviously, we got fair foul, and then got to make sure that we can take it in. And again, we should be using our eyes so intentionally that we can narrate exactly what happens. Last clip here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Okay, so very similar play. This one is an uncaught third strike. Swing and a miss. Batter takes off for first base, and then it deflects off his foot. And I'll slow it down once we get a better angle. Here's a look. Strike three. Ball gets away. Deflects off his heel right there. What do we have?
That's
No
interference now.
interference.
Nothing.
I got nothing.
Nothing.
It was not a cleanly caught ball.
Okay. Those of you guys who said you have nothing, why do you, someone tell me why exactly you have nothing here?
You can't penalize the runner because a catcher can't catch the ball.
Okay.
It wasn't a batted ball.
The ball's
He's a batter
also,
runner.
yeah.
And it
Balls
was
in the
not
dirt.
intentional.
to do.
Yeah, the catcher blocks him in for him.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a batter runner, and batter runner interference has to be intentional.
Okay. On a thrown ball, right?
I believe it's anything.
No, yeah, no,
This
it
is
doesn't.
the-
I don't think
The
intent
only-
has
the
anything
only-
to do with this.
I know the only rule set that this is now for sure interference is college.
Yeah. And here's my caveat to it. I think that if this ball deflects off his heel and stays in the immediate reach of the fielder, we probably have a that's nothing. But because this one goes out of the immediate reach of the catcher, that's the long end of the stick, and that's the one that we want to grab. I'm probably grabbing interference here. And again, like, I think the batter does what he's supposed to do. You're absolutely right. And you know, the ball is bounding here wherever it, you know, wants to go. But at the end of the day here, remember the rule is that the batter interferes with the catcher's fielding or throwing ability. And as it takes this ball out of his immediate reach, many would argue that because it's out of his immediate reach, you can get interference in this call.
However, when you say it was a result of the ball bouncing into his foot,
Yeah.
so to me, it's almost similar to the bat in
Yeah.
that regards. It's being bounced into his foot, not his foot hitting the ball.
Yeah.
But the catcher erred by not catching.
I would say this is very similar to the wild pitch not catching it with umpire interference.
Right. This is definitely not an error on the catcher. because
No, it's a wild pitch.
Yeah.
It's a wild pitch.
So we can't use the air on the play provision here. Yeah, it's a wild pitch, and that applies to a fielder on a batted ball. All right, so this is a pitch, so it's a little bit different. I think what we're finding out here is that as we start to incorporate some of these drop third strike mechanics, there just needs to be a little bit more clarification in our rule set here with it too. I think those of you who have argued for that's nothing have viable arguments. And I think those who argued for interference on the basis that the ball has taken the contact here has taken the ball out of the immediate reach of the catcher. I think you also have a viable argument here for interference as well. And I do think that if you call interference here, you have to use that verbiage. It's out of his immediate reach. And then secondly, you probably also have to say that he interfered with his ability, the catcher's ability to field this ball. All right. And again, remember that you don't always have to have intent. Now, surely there is some gray area here because the batter's become a runner in this instance. And again, I think our rule set just needs a little bit more clarification here with uncaught third strike situations.
What did the plate umpire call it in this one?
Yep, he called interference on this one. They actually got it retroactively, and I believe it was through replay. Is how they got it. So they came back and got interference on that one for that reason that the ball deflected out of the immediate reach. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think if you go back, you see him coming out with that's nothing.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly.
And then they come back, and I think actually, Seth, it's this is why our uncaught mechanic has to be right, because I think he's actually signaling strike and uncaught. So that's a whole nother thing about our third strike. There should just be a point and outstretched arm to the side. Is what we should have had there instead of the safe mechanic for us. Remember, safe would be basically on either a missed tag or a very clear, like untrapped or like uncaught ball. Yeah, good point there.
And this is why I think our uncaught third strike mechanic is very clean, because it's a distinct motion that only has one mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you got it. All righty. Any other thoughts here before we go ahead and round out the conversation on batter's interference? All right, I've got, DJ, you can link into the chat here now, a couple situations that we put together. I think there's either 6 or 7 that review a lot of the things that we talked about today. So if you want to take a look at those and use those, I'm going to share those in our meeting, and then I'll also share the answers to those later in next week, probably, when I go ahead and email out a bunch of new things here. So that stuff is in the chat here, and again, it's just specific to a lot of the things we talked about today, interference on the batter. I'll go ahead and wrap things up here today and end the recording here in just a second. Today we talked about batter's interference and really focused just on the batter and a little bit of the batter runner, more so on the batter runner with runner's lane interference and probably even some catcher's interference when we meet again next week. Now, interference will take us a little bit to get through. Same time, same place next week for batter's interference part 2. Thanks again to everybody for joining us. Appreciate you guys for taking some time out of your day. And again, we'll meet next week for part 2 then of batter's interference. Thanks for joining us. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.